Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about the 9 books, these plus some Kindle ones, that I read during the month of March, and also decide my April TBR. I'm super excited. I love filming these every month. They're so much fun. And March was an interesting reading month, to say the least. So I really want to talk about everything that I went through in the past 31 days. But as always, I want to do my stats first. So I'm pulling up my app Storygraph. And in the month of March, I read 9 books, which is great. I was really worried about not getting that many books because at the beginning of the month I was reading like nothing, but then I really caught up towards the end. And I actually read 4,358 pages, which is really good, the best so far of the year. 11% of the books were under 300 pages, 33% were over 500, and then the other 56% were in between 300 and 499 pages. They were all fiction, as usual. My genres this month I feel were much more varied than recent months. Of course, we have fantasy and romance being the top 2 with 5 books each, but then I also have 2 young adult, 2 thrillers, 1 dystopian, 1 science fiction, 1 mystery, 1 historical, and 1 contemporary. Usually each book will have multiple genres to it, which is why there's more than 9 here, but I think I had a really good range of different types of books this month. I read 22% of the books digitally and 78% of them through a physical copy, which is great. I love reading my physical books. And then my average star rating for this month was actually a 3.39, which isn't terrible, but considering I had 3 books under 2 stars this month, that really says something that it still was above a 3-star average rating. So let's not waste any time and just get into it. The first book that I read in March was Kiss of the Basilisk by Lindsay Straub. This book was my first DNF of the year. Woo! It took us 3 months to get here, but we finally did. So this book has been blowing up on TikTok recently. It is a very popular romantasy book. It was originally titled Split or Swallow. And then it was, I think, traditionally published, because I literally saw this in Barnes & Noble a couple weeks ago with this cover, which I think is a better cover in my opinion. Going into this book, I knew nothing about it except for the fact that it is incredibly spicy, but I thought that I was in the mood for a kind of spicy book. It follows our main character, I think her name is Tem, in this village where all the girls who are of age are competing to marry the prince. Kind of like The Selection, but like much more horny, because in order to win his attention, you have to go like basically train with these basilisks who are part serpent, part human. It's like they can transform into their different forms and train basically to learn how to be better in bed. Crazy concept, but I was down to try it at first. I thought there was going to be a lot more plot to this than just that very broad summary. But then I started this book and I realized there's nothing to this but spice, to be honest. Like, was the spice good? Sure, for a little bit, but then I was like getting so bored because the plot of the actual story was, first of all, barely there. The whole trying to get the prince's attention and or dealing with a love triangle between the prince and the basilisk, like incredibly predictable. I could tell you how the book ends basically without even finishing it because I DNF'd it at 45%. And overall, the main character girl named Tem was absolutely insufferable, so annoying, and I really could not finish this book. I could not do it. I wish there was less spice, but the spice was fun. Like there's this one part with a claw, if you know, you know. It was cool. But that being said, I could not read 500 pages of simple, like literally just smut for 500 pages. I couldn't do it. So my first book was a DNF, and this honestly probably propelled me into not wanting to read that much during the beginning of the month because I was like struggling to get through that one. But the next book that I read after that was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This was the first book on my March TBR, and I also just want to preface this and say that I completed my March TBR this month. Yep, I did it. I finally finished the TBR. I'm so excited. We'll go through all of the books that I read on my TBR in the course of this video, but this was one of them. This is the first thriller I've ever read. I've heard so many good things about Alice Feeney, and specifically this book. Sarah Caroli says so many good things about it, so when I found this at Half Price Books for like $8, I wanted to pick it up and try it and like see if I wanted to add thriller to my book collection. This book follows main characters Amelia and Adam. They are married, and they have been married for years, but they are really dealing with some struggles in their relationship, and so Amelia decides that she wants to go on this weekend vacation to this old Airbnb up in Scotland, which turns out to be an old deserted church, and creepy things start happening as they realize more about their relationship and try to get themselves to a better place. Now, I don't want to say much about this book at all because going into this almost blind is what made this book incredible for me. Honestly, throughout most of it, the beginning, middle part, really intrigued. And then I got towards like this section of the book and I was just kind of like dragging through. I got kind of bored. I had to pick up the audiobook to continue, but the plot just at the end was actually so good. Like I was not expecting it at all. It blew me away. And again, I don't read many thrillers, but my mother does. So I told her that she should read this. I wanted to hear her thoughts on it. And as a person who reads a lot of mystery thrillers, she was also shocked by this plot twist. So I feel like I'm valid in saying that it was a really good twist at the end. And so because of the twist, I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. I don't think that I'm really drawn to the thriller genre right now. I know it's very popular on TikTok and booktok and stuff like that. I think it was a good time, but I don't know if I really want to pick up another one anytime soon. So I can say that I tried it, but I think I'm going to stick to my more comfort zone genres for probably the majority of April, but I'm still glad that I tried and really enjoyed this. So 4 stars for this one. Next, I did a reread of A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series that I read 4 or 5 years ago, but I've been collecting them slowly in paperbacks over the past couple of months. I just got book 3 in the mail last week, and so I wanted to do my reread of book 2, and I actually annotated it. So if you all want to look at these tabs, super pretty, I'm really happy with them. And honestly, like, you probably can't even see, but so much of this book has like my little writing and my notes in it as well. I doubt you can see anything really, but all that to say that I really immersed myself in this reading experience to make sure that my copy was well loved, and it shows how much I appreciate these characters, because I honestly have loved these characters for like 5 years. I've never actually picked up the book physically, and it was such a good time. I gave this book 4.5 stars. If you don't know anything about ACOTAR, this is a weird channel for you to be on. I talk about it all the time. But ACOTAR is my second favorite series by Sarah J. Maas. It follows our main girl, Feyre, who is a human, and in the first book, she gets taken into the Fey world by this guy named Tamlin, who is a Fey High Lord. In this book, the plot really switches. So if you feel like you didn't like book 1, trust me, pick up book 2. You will probably like it a lot better. But I don't want to talk about the plot of this because it really does spoil book 1 a lot, and I don't want to be in spoiler territory in this video. So all I will say is this book has a lot of really good romance, a lot of good tension building. I feel like a lot of romantasy books like hit the romance so quickly, and like they're already getting physical, or they're already like admitting feelings like halfway through the book. This was really good in that it takes you a long time to get there. I mean, it is a longer book. It's like almost 600 pages, but actually it is over 600 pages. It's like 620. It wasn't even slow burn, but the process of the romance took its time, more than I remember it doing, so that was really awesome. And I love the side characters in this story, like Cassie and Azriel Moore. They are all like my babies. They have a special place in my heart, especially Azriel. Going back and like rereading and introducing myself to this world again was such a good time, and I really had so much fun. But then I went to Houston for spring break back home, and I picked up this book at Barnes & Noble, and I really wasn't supposed to buy anything because I have enough books. I don't need to buy any more, honestly. I need to finish my physical TBR first, but I was proud of myself because I picked up this book and read it in the following week. So it's like net zero, you know, we're back at square one. But that is Guild by Raven Kennedy. This is the first book in the Plated Prisoner series, which I've heard a lot of mixed things about, but I wanted to try this book for myself. And just for a preface, I gave this book 3 stars. So I didn't dislike it at all, but I definitely had some issues with it. This follows our main character, Oren, who is the prized possession of King Midas. And yes, I use possession purposefully because she is the only person he has ever turned completely gold. And because of this, he basically keeps her in this glorified birdcage in his castle and like flaunts her around and shows her off to people, but he really does treat her like an object in many ways. And I feel like at the beginning of this book, she was quite manipulated into thinking that he really cares for her, he's really treating her well, but we really find out that no, he's manipulating you, babe. You need to get out of that situation. So this book tackles a lot of leaving an unhealthy relationship, not being treated to your full worth, to your full potential, being treated like an object. This book has a lot about sexual assault and violence and stuff in it, so I definitely watched trigger warnings for this one, but I thought that the book honestly was quite good. I liked the story. I expected to be a fantasy romance. I didn't get any romance in this book, although I have heard that the rest of the series has more romance in it, and I do intend to continue the series, so we will see in like book 2 or 3 if something else happens. But as far as book 1, I feel like some parts of the book made our girl Oren seem a little immature, seem annoying to read about. She was never my absolute favorite character ever, but finishing the book and looking back on it, I really did have a pretty decent time with it. It was very fast-paced, very easy to read, and I think it's a very interesting start to a series that I think is 6 books long, so we're just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg here. So I'm intrigued to see how the story continues in future books. 3 stars, not bad. Then I read Flowers in the Attic, which I actually used to have a paperback copy of, but it was not mine, it was my friend's, and that is because I didn't want to read this book, but my friend forced me to. I talked about this in the vlog that I made kind of surrounding this book, but 2 of my friends and I are doing this book swap, so we each like switch books every couple of months, read, annotate it, and then switch again. So one of my friends, who's also named Sophie, ironically, gave me Flowers in the Attic to read as her book choice, and I went into this book knowing absolutely nothing, and I came out of it a little scarred, I'm not gonna lie. So I used to have the paperback copy. I gave it back to her, so I don't have it anymore, but I did read this physically, and it was just such a rough time. The book was written in like the 1970s, so it is definitely a little old and outdated, but it follows these 4 siblings. I think it's Kathy, Christopher, Carrie, and Corey, maybe. They used to live in this amazing house with their parents, but then their dad dies and their mom takes all 4 of them to go live with her parents. But she was estranged from her parents years ago. So because going back to her parents' house is like a really uncomfortable situation and she doesn't want to overwhelm her parents with like not only her coming back but also her 4 kids, she decides that she's going to put the 4 kids and her mother as well, they're going to put the 4 kids basically in the attic and store them away there in secret until the mother gets back in the good graces with her father, and then she'll reveal to her father that she has 4 kids that have been living in his attic. Now ironically, in my opinion, if I was the grandfather in this situation, I would feel worse waiting a couple months for you to introduce 4 kids to me that have just been taking up room in my attic than just telling me straight up that, hey, I have 4 kids now. Dumbass plot. So stupid. But the entire book basically follows these 4 kids in the attic. It takes place in the point of view of Kathy, who is a 12-year-old girl. So if you think that's annoying to read about, it really was. It's so repetitive. It's so frustrating being in her head. I hated everything about this. But then it gets worse, because if you know the plot is in this book, or you know anything that happens, like the relationship between the parents, the relationship between Kathy and someone else later, oh my gosh. I don't want to spoil, but also I don't recommend you read this at all. I hated it, and I think that it's an old enough book that the plot is just very well known. It was also turned into a movie, I believe, so yeah, really awful time. I want to erase my brain from reading it, and at the very end, there was a really good opportunity for the kids to get revenge on the people who put them in the attic for years, and they just let it go. They said, I'm fine, and walked away from it. So because of that last little bit, I was like, absolutely not. It's a ruined book for me. So I give it 1.5 stars. It was a terrible time. I really hated my experience, and I will never read anything by V.C. Andrews ever again. Okay? So, on that lovely note, moving on to arguably the best book that I read this month. I had 2 5 stars this month, but this one may have been number 1, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping. I don't know what much to say about this book, because if I start ranting, I will literally go on for hours. I made an entire reading vlog that went out a couple days ago, so if you want to watch it, I'll link it down below for you. If you want to hear my full thoughts, spoiler and non-spoiler, I have a separate section for spoilers in that video. But if you weren't aware, if you live under a rock, okay, Hunger Games is a series that came out when I was in middle school. And then a couple years ago, the author, Suzanne Collins, released the prequel. And then 2 weeks ago, she released a second prequel that was like in between the first prequel and the original series. So basically, we're following this story in the middle, following our main character, Haymitch. There's just so much lore that I have to explain if you have never read Hunger Games before. I don't know how to like detail this right now, so I'm not going to. But let's just say that Haymitch is a very troubled character, and we see him in the original trilogy. So going back and reading his backstory is absolutely heartbreaking. It's written so well, but it does so much like emotional damage to you while reading it. Not just because his story isn't incredibly emotional, because it is, but also because it ties in so much from the prequel and the old original trilogy that like the through lines and the connections are absolutely mind-boggling. The basic premise of the Hunger Games is that there are 12 districts and the capital in this future dystopian version of the US, and there was apparently this huge rebellion that happened years ago and the capital won. And so in order to tell the districts that they are still not in charge and kind of prove that the capital is in charge of everything, every year they take one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 to fight to the death in this huge game called the Hunger Games, and every year this happens. And so that's the basic premise of all of the books. It just follows different characters in different years trying to deal with this oppression, deal with this terrible regime. And to be honest, there are a lot of political tie-ins and connections that I could make to our modern democracy in the United States right now. So it was definitely hard-hitting to read, connecting it to our current political state of this nation. Oh my gosh. Yeah, overall, it was an incredible experience. 5 stars. And I sobbed at the end so much. So again, if you want to watch the vlog, I will link it down below. But if you haven't read the series, do me a favor and pick it up. You need to. So then last weekend, so a couple days ago, literally, I did a 24-hour reading challenge. And yes, I vlogged the entire experience. That vlog will be up next week. So if you want to make sure you don't miss it, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't. But I'm going to go through the books that I read during that vlog very quickly because I don't want to spoil the video, but also I want to let you know what I read. So very quickly, the first book that I read was Clockwork Princess. This is the 3rd book in the Infernal Devices series, and it was awesome because I finished out my reread of the series and could check off one series off the list of my many series that I'm in the middle of. But also, this was a 5-star book for me. Yes, ma'am. It was so good. I tabbed so much of this. Can y'all see all the tabs in here? I also did like a little ombre effect between light to dark. I think it looks so good. But also, if you think that I wrote a lot in A Court of Mist and Fury, like I highlighted like entire swaths of the page in this book because the writing is so good. Will and Jem are my babies. I love them so much. Is this series a love triangle? Yes, but it's like the best love triangle ever. It's done so well. The books are so beautifully written. The story is so heart-wrenching. The plot is good, but the characters will make you actually sob and tear your heart out. The characters are what make this the best thing ever. So I'm so happy that I finally finished this reread of the series. 5 stars for this one. It was incredible. And again, I'll talk more about it in my reading vlog next week. Then I picked up Terms and Conditions, also in the vlog next week. This follows Iris and Declan, and it is their romance. It's basically an arranged marriage story because Declan needs to get married and have a child in order for him to get his inheritance from his grandfather who passed away. Basically, in this story, in this series, there are 3 brothers who all collectively own Dreamland, which is like a fictional version of Disney World, and they're all billionaires, but in order to get their inheritance, they have to like follow the things that their grandfather wanted them to do. And so he's trying to get an arranged marriage, but no one will marry him. And so Iris, who is his assistant and secretary, is like, you know what? I'll take one for the team. I'll do it. So they get fake married, and then, well, actually married, but it's like not a real feelings until later on in the book they actually do gain real feelings. I went back and forth on whether I wanted to rate this a 3.5 or a 4 star, but I ended up rating it 4 stars. It honestly was such a good time. I had so much fun with this. I read it so fast. I loved both of the main characters, and it was really fun. So I'm gonna move on to book 3 eventually and hopefully finish that soon. Another book off of my list of series. That's like a goal of mine this year, is to really narrow down that list so I don't have as many that I'm in the middle of. But yeah, such a fun time. You'll see more in the vlog. And then the last book that I read in the month of March, the final book on my TBR, which by the way, the other books on my TBR were Rock, Paper, Scissors, A Court of Mist and Fury, and Flowers in the Attic. But the last book was Under the Oak Tree, and I finished this one literally this morning, so right in the nick of time. It's currently the 31st, so I finished it today. And this book follows our main character, Maxie, who is the daughter of a duke, but she has a stutter. And because of that, her father treats her terribly. He marries her off to this knight who is like lowborn. There was a lot in this book about dubcon, specifically marital rape at the beginning of this, because they had to like consummate the marriage during their wedding night, and he was incredibly violent with her and incredibly uncomfortable to read about. The guy in this book is honestly such a red flag. Everything that he does is like not good. He's always yelling at people. He's always very emotionally violent. Even to her, he's always yelling to her and then be like, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm sorry. And I'm like, that is the abusive cycle. It should not be romanticized in this book. There are also a lot of misogynistic undertones in this book. Also, I think there's a difference between having a stutter and making that stutter your personality, and like assuming that because she has a stutter that she is inherently meek and weak and a damsel in distress. But this book really makes her the damsel for the entire book. There is no character arc. It makes me so mad because honestly, this book has potential. I love the stutter, like disability representation here. So if we used this to make her one like powerful character where she leaves this toxic relationship and becomes like self-empowered person, would eat that up. But this book basically leans into all of the red flags and it has no good qualities to it. So I did read the entire thing, but I'm giving it 2 stars. That's my final rating. I think in the vlog I said I would give it 3, but in hindsight it's a 2 star for me. It was not a fun time, and although the cover is like gorgeous, I do not recommend this one. So don't pick it up. Save yourself the time, okay? Alright, so like I said, I read my entire TBR in March, which I was very happy about. I'm very proud of myself. But now it's time to pick our TBR for April. So I have my TBR jar that I've been using for the past couple months and having so much fun with, and I'm gonna pick at least 4, but maybe 5 prompts, because since I finished my TBR last month, maybe I have the confidence to like actually finish another one. So let's do a little mix, pick a prompt. The first prompt is a book with a blue cover. Okay, so this is my physical TBR shelf besides a couple on here, and then I also have 2 more books up at the top that are also physical TBR. But looking at the shelf, there's not really one besides this one that's blue that I want to read. So let me pull up Goodreads and see if there's anything on there that's really calling to me. Okay, One Last Rainy Day is an option. One of my favorite booktubers named Heather McClary read this book and loved it. It's by Kate Stewart. I know nothing about it except for that it's supposed to be connected to 2, the Flock series, which I never read. That might be an option for the book that we choose. There's also Beartown. So Beartown I really, really want to read. This is a book by Frederick Bachman about a small town in like a snowy woods somewhere that's really surrounded by hockey, and there's like a murder that they figure out. This one I really want to get in paperback and read. And then there's also The Sword of Kaigen, which is by M.L. Wong. This is supposed to be a really emotional book about war and a mother and her son and finding out the truths about the fantasy world that you live in. Out of these three, I want to read all of them. Like, I don't know. I want to read all of them. I feel like Beartown is kind of a wintry book, but also like if I wait till winter, I'll be waiting 8 months to read it, and I don't want to do that. So maybe I should just read it ASAP. I'm going to take off Sword of Kaigen because that one's really long and intimidating. So if my choices are between Beartown and One Last Rainy Day, I think I'm going to pick Beartown because I've been wanting to read it for longer, and that gives me an excuse to go to Barnes and buy it. So I think Beartown is going to be number 1 on my TBR. I really want to get around to this month. I think it's going to be so good. All right, moving on to book number 2. The next book on my TBR is a book with a 3-word title. The Atlas 6 is one that, this is the other book in my friend book swap. My first friend gave me Flowers in the Attic. My second one gave me the Atlas 6. I have this book technically. This isn't my copy, this is my friend's. I have my copy back at home, but this is an option because I do need to read this at some point in the next couple of months before we switch again. There actually are a lot of books in here with 3-word titles. Like, we have This Woven Kingdom, which is the first in a fantasy series that I really want to read. I've been had this book for a while. There's also The Jazzed Air, once again, fantasy series. Had it for a while. I want to read it. But I also don't want to start too many series, to be honest. Okay, so if the 3 options are Jazzed Air, Woven Kingdom, and the Atlas 6, I think what I'm going to choose is probably the Jazzed Air. This is supposed to be inspired by Egyptian mythology, and I'm really, really intrigued by this. It is a start to a series, but I don't think book 2 is out yet, so I can just read one book and be caught up, technically. Whereas for these 2 series, they both have multiple books already out, so I have to do a lot more catching up. So I think I'm going to choose the Jazzed Air as my pick for book 2. All right, moving on to book 3. This one is A Book You Can't Stop Thinking About. Oh, I love this one. Okay, so going back to my TBR on my Goodreads app, let me scroll up to the top and see what I've most recently added on my want to read list. I feel like One Last Rainy Day could fit in this category. It's a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. I also have Amid Clouds and Bones. This is a standalone fantasy, which I feel like we don't see at all these days. They're always series, but this one is one I've been really intrigued by. I know nothing about it, but I just know that it's a standalone, and that makes me happy. But I think because One Last Rainy Day was what I was thinking about for an earlier prompt, I'm gonna pick that one for April. And also because like this book may have nothing to do with rain, but like because April is the month of rain, I feel like it makes sense. I feel like it's calling to me. So I'm gonna do One Last Rainy Day as the book that I can't stop thinking about. It has really good ratings, so I hope that it's a really good time. I'm crossing my fingers that it's good. All right, let's do another one. I'm thinking maybe we do 5 for this month. I'll challenge myself to read 5 books instead of 4. This one says a book that's less than 300 pages. Well, that's a little hard to find, to be honest, but honestly, I need a short book to kind of balance out all of these chunkier, longer books. Let's see how long the Atlas 6 is. Is this under 300 pages? Nope, almost 400. Well, it's actually, this doesn't seem very long. Under 300 is kind of a challenge. Let me sort this by number of pages. Okay, there are literally only 4 books on my TBR that are less than 300 pages. We have Graveyard Shift, One Among Crows, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and then You've Reached Sam. I think if I had to pick one, I'm probably going to pick One Among Crows, or actually, that's a series. I need to start a series. Let me pick The Picture of Dorian Gray. Am I going to read this? Chances are very low, but I do have the paperback copy at my house, so when I go home for Easter, I might go pick it up. I'll put this on the list. I don't know if I'm going to read that one. We'll have to see. I'm trying to keep high hopes, but like that's kind of a weird one, like out of nowhere, like a classic that I've had no intention to pick up for months, but I'll put it on the list. And because it's kind of iffy, I'll do one more. Let's see. This one is A Book with a Trope You Love. Gotta end on a high note. Well, obviously for most books that I haven't read, I don't know all the tropes, but trying to think about just what I basically know, like the bare minimum of every book. Let me look at Final Offer. I'm kind of intrigued to read the next one in this series. Okay, so Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This book in the series is the last brother. His name is Cal, and I think he gets back with his ex, but it says in the description this is his childhood best friend and the only woman he has ever loved. So like that sounds so good. And since I literally just read Terms and Conditions and I had such a good time with this, like better than I expected, I'm thinking I want to pick up that one next. Really quick turnaround compared to how long it took me to read between Fine Print and this book, but then like also I really loved that. So maybe I'll really love Final Offer. So I'm gonna put Final Offer on the list. We will just have to see how good it is. I think it's gonna be good. I have high hopes. So my final April TBR. This one's kind of a weird one, I'm not gonna lie. We have The Jazzed Air, which is the only one that I still have in paperback at the minute. We have Picture of Dorian Gray, which is what I probably will pick up when I go home for Easter. And then we have Final Offer, which is the next book in the Dreamland Billionaires series. We have Beartown by Frederick Bachman, which I have really high hopes about. I really hope this is good. And I'm probably gonna have to get it as well when I go to the bookstore this month. And then lastly, we have One Last Rainy Day by Kate Stewart. So this is definitely a weird TBR. I'm nervous about finishing this, but I think it'll be good. Subscribe, I post new videos every single Thursday. And like I said, my 24-hour reading vlog for the last 3 books that I read during the month of March, these 2, and also Clockwork Princess, will be out next week. So if you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe. Have a good week, and I will see y'all next Thursday.